lean over.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Mac Prichard, founder and publisher of Mac's List. Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you, especially for those of you here in Portland. We're going through a Portland snow day, so I appreciate you finding the time to log in. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We had a large number of people register for this webinar, so we want to wait just a couple minutes for others to join us. In the meantime, I want to introduce my teammates. Joining me today are Becky Thomas, our digital marketing manager. Becky, you want to lean in?
Okay. Hey, everybody.
And Ben Forstack, our managing director. And you can find out more about both of them by visiting our website. But today, Becky's going to be managing the chat room function. She'll be keeping an eye on your messages and your questions. And as we get started, she's going to let me know as questions come in. Ben's in charge of all the technical stuff, and he'll keep an eye on our connection and make sure that I don't screw up the slides as I advance them. So really appreciate you all joining us. Our format today is pretty simple. I'll give a presentation that will run about 20-25 minutes, and we are asking that you hold your questions until I finish, and then we do want to hear from you, so we want to allow plenty of time for your questions. So we'll have about half an hour, 35 minutes together to have a conversation. We will post a recording of this webinar in about an hour after it ends, and we'll also send a follow-up email with more information about this topic as well as a link to the webinar. And I'll repeat all that again in just a moment because people are continuing to join us. So Becky, how do the registrations look right now?
We still have some folks joining, but we've got lots of folks online, over 100 people online now. So we're probably good to go ahead and get started.
All right. So thanks for the 100+ people who are right here on the conversation right now. And I know others will be joining us. And again, for those who might have missed it, just quickly, we will post a recording of the webinar about an hour after this event ends. We will also send you an email tomorrow with a link to the recording and as well as other information about this course that we're offering and this topic. So let's get started. Let me go to the slides and let me hit start. There we go. And we're just going to close the video. Ben is helping me with that, full disclosure. First, let me begin by just congratulating you for showing up for this webinar. A lot of people, and rightly so, complain that it's hard to look for work. And I know it's a difficult and painful process for any professional. But you're here today. You showed up. And I hope you did this in order to take action to improve your own job search and your career. It takes a lot of effort to make positive changes during a hard time. So I'm really glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Now we're going to start by building a better job search strategy today. And we're going to show you a strategy that makes the job search less painful and more rewarding. But first, we have to identify some of the most common mistakes that people make that create job search pain in the first place. And that, again, this is our agenda. I talk to thousands of job seekers every year, and I see them make the same mistakes over and over again. And candidly, I made these mistakes myself, so I sympathize, and I want to go through 4 of the top common mistakes. And you'll need to ask yourself honestly if you're making them yourself. Before we get too far, I want you to know that I understand the pain you're feeling. Again, I've struggled to find jobs in the past. I happen to be 59, and I've been in the workplace for 40+ years, so I've dealt with the stress of long-term unemployment. I'm not here to preach. I want to share the things that I've learned in my own career and in my role at Mac's List. So I'll also share some of my own story with you. Then I want to highlight a key concept that you need to know to have a better, more successful job search. It's the idea of the hidden job market. If you want to access the best opportunities in your town, you really need to start thinking about the jobs that don't ever get publicly advertised. These are the jobs that get filled by word of mouth through established professional networks. With this in mind, I'm going to share 6 ways you can tap into the hidden job market and how these actions can make your job search process much less painful. In practical terms, that means a faster, easier, and more rewarding way to find a job that you can love. And finally, today I want to answer your questions. So if you're here, you're probably dealing with a job search challenge right now, or you have a nagging question about networking or your resume, or maybe an upcoming job interview. I want to help answer those questions. So put your questions in the comments section. Becky's going to gather them, and I'll answer them all after this presentation. So let's move on, and there we go. Let me quickly share a little bit about MaxList. I think many of you may know that MaxList is a job board. We post meaningful professional level job openings in Portland and beyond. And this is how the company started, and it's a service we're really proud of. Today, MaxList does a lot more than just post jobs. It's also our mission to help passionate job seekers find and land jobs they'll love. And we do this by creating resources and educational opportunities. We've published 2 books and several online courses. And if you're in Portland, you probably know we host local networking events. And we even have a free weekly podcast. It's called Find Your Dream Job. Plus, we write articles on our website, and we send out email newsletters that address all facets of finding a job. The bottom line is this: we work every day to help people learn new skills to find the work they deserve, work that is engaging, financially rewarding, and personally meaningful. We make all of these things happen because so many people still struggle needlessly with the job search, and we want to show you a better way. So let's get to the meat of it. Let's start by outlining those 4 common job search mistakes. Here's the first mistake most job seekers make. They keep all their options open. I understand the reasoning here. You don't want to close any doors or say no to opportunities. It's an appealing approach, particularly when you've got that feeling, I need a job, any job. I get it, but hear me out. This is the wrong approach. The unfocused spray and pray approach to a job search doesn't work. You waste a lot of energy applying for jobs you're not qualified for or don't even really want, and you don't want to end up in a job you hate. Plus, employers want people who are genuinely passionate about their job. To be that person for them, you need to be able to articulate your professional value. That means you need to focus. Instead of applying blind for every job that you find, you need to narrow down your goals and focus on the jobs you really want. This starts by setting goals for what you want to do for work. It's okay to have 2 or 3 different goals that you're working towards, but the I'll do anything approach rarely works. When you have a focus goal, you'll also make it easier for other people to help you. I host informational interviews with lots of job seekers, and my first question is always this: what do you want to do? And when someone responds, I don't know, or I'm keeping my options open, they're not giving me the information I need to help them. You need to do the work first to know what you want. The second common mistake is applying early, often, and everywhere. And we sometimes call this the carpet bombing approach. So many people make this mistake. They think that looking for a job is a numbers game, and that if you apply for enough jobs, you'll eventually get an interview. And if you interview enough times, you'll eventually get a job offer. In practice, the job seeker ends up spending all day, every day, blanketing the local job market with the same generic resume. They don't research companies or customize applications. They just apply as quickly as possible for as many jobs as possible without much thought about whether they're interested in the job or not. I know when I say it out loud, it sounds like a waste of time and energy, but be honest, we've all done this to some extent. I certainly have in my career. Now, there are 2 problems with this approach. First, the apply everywhere strategy fails for the same reason the I'll do anything approach doesn't work. Employers want people who show genuine interest and have legitimate qualifications for the open job. And your generic application is a clear sign of your lack of interest and effort. It makes you look lazy and lands you in the no pile. Second, even if you're sending out generic applications, you're still going to spend a lot of time applying to all those jobs. Think of how long it takes to fill out one of those online applications, where you have to manually enter the phone number for every former boss, your minor in college, the address of your high school. Not only is it horribly boring, but it's also a huge time commitment. Here's another mistake people make, and it's one you might be surprised to hear from someone like me, but hear me out. Job seekers spend way too much time looking at job boards like MaxList. In 2018, it's easier than ever to find job openings. There are thousands of job boards out there and hundreds of thousands of jobs posted online. But the truth is that it's never been harder to actually land a great job. For every job you find online, hundreds, sometimes thousands of other people will apply. And everyone who's responding to the online post is basically applying cold without having any established connection with the employer. This has become the mainstream hiring method. And truthfully, it's painful for both job seekers and employers. And your chances for success as an applicant are very, very slim. Also, and this is key, job boards only represent a small percentage of the total available jobs. Now, I don't want to totally discredit job boards. Many small niche and local job boards like MaxList will post jobs that you can't find anywhere else. But searching and applying online shouldn't be the only way you find jobs. It should be just one part of a larger job search strategy. The final job search mistake is probably the most frustrating for job seekers. I call it the apply and wait method. Most job seekers embrace a passive approach to their search. They apply for a job they find online, and then they just wait to hear back. They apply for another job, and then they wait. They apply again and wait. And most of the time, you wait, and nothing happens. You never hear back. And many job seekers, as a result, start to feel irrelevant. You start to think nobody's listening, and you'll never find a job. Does that sound familiar? This can be a paralyzing fear, and to avoid it, you need to take a more active approach to your job hunt. In a few minutes, I'll outline some proven strategies for doing this, but first, I want to tell you about my own job search experiences to give you some context. So my career started strong out of college. I worked on a U.S. Senate race. I managed U.S. and foreign media relations for a human rights group in Washington, D.C. And then I went on to help lead and congressional fact-finding missions to Central America for another human rights group in Boston. So that skinny guy in the picture is me standing next to the president of El Salvador. All of these jobs were hard, but finding them had been easy. I answered a newspaper ad for the U.S. Senate campaign. The nonprofit in D.C. hired me because I'd been a college intern there, and they asked if I would return after graduation. And the Boston job came to me through word of mouth. So I didn't think twice about being unemployed when I quit my Boston job in 1986 for the Human Rights Group. I figured my next position would come to me soon enough. I was wrong. For most of a year, I sent out applications every week for jobs I saw in the Boston Globe, which was the best local source in those pre-internet days. I got a few interviews, but no offers. So what was I doing wrong? Here's the problem. Most open jobs, both back in the 1980s and today, are never advertised. They're part of the hidden job market. And looking back, I realized I was part of the hidden job market in those first few jobs I got. I got those positions through connections and word of mouth. And when I reinvested in networking and reaching out to others, I landed a great job in Boston in less than 2 months, actually. So the hidden job market, let's hang on here. We're just advancing the slide. Bear with us. There we go. Now I know the hidden job market, it sounds mysterious, but it's really simple. While job boards are a great resource, the truth is that most jobs, some say up to 80%, get filled by word of mouth. Why? It's because people trust people they know. It's human nature. And they hire people based on recommendations from trusted friends and colleagues. Those trusted word of mouth recommendations make up the hidden job market. Let me give you a concrete example. I recently received this message from a friend who wants help finding his replacement. And people send messages like this all the time. A friend, colleague, or family member will share a position they're hiring for and ask for good candidates. And they prefer to get applications from people who have been vetted by someone they trust. That's the hidden job market. It's people asking people they trust to recommend good candidates for their open jobs. I know many people are frustrated by this concept. It's a variation of it's all about who you know. But there's no conspiracy here. It's just a fundamental fact of human nature. People hire people that share a connection, no matter how slight that tie might be. And you need to uncover these opportunities yourself because you won't find them on job boards. Now, here's the good news. You don't have to be the hiring manager's best friend, college roommate, or favorite in-law to get the job. You definitely don't need to know the hiring manager directly. Even a weak connection can give you a big advantage over other applicants, even those who are more qualified than you. So if only 20% of jobs are posted on job boards, why do people spend most of their time and energy looking for jobs online? If you're only on job boards, you're never seeing a majority of the job openings that are out there. And the jobs that don't get posted tend to be the best jobs out there, the real plum gigs, the ones that hiring managers can easily fill by asking around in their networks. So if you're with me this far, it's time to really rethink your job search. The hidden job market dictates you need to go where the jobs are. And the jobs in the hidden job market are only accessible through networking. I know that spending 80% of your time networking might seem scary. If you're still not sure what to give up, you want to give up rather your job board first approach, let's talk about what that approach really looks like in practice. Remember, the title of this webinar is Take the Pain Out of Your Job Search. So let's, there we go. You know, this is a graph that shows a typical job search, and it's a process that most people go through. And again, I've done this myself earlier in my career. People start off exclusively looking for jobs online, and they fill out those mundane job history forms. They apply for jobs cold without having any connection to the employer or the hiring manager. And as you might expect, the results aren't great. When this approach doesn't work, many people feel frustration creep in. Often they panic and they double down on the numbers game. They become even less selective, and they start carpet bombing the internet with generic applications. Do you think this yields a better result? Usually, in fact, it just generates more pain and more frustration. Many people, understandably, they start to lose morale, and it's easy to get stuck. It's a vicious cycle. It takes a lot of work and a lot of mental energy, and it often produces little more than frustration and anger. But again, this is how most of us approach a job search. I want you to avoid this self-defeating cycle. I know you want to avoid it too. So are you ready to consider a radically different approach? I'm going to take you through 6 actions you can take right now today to put a networking first approach into practice for your job search. It'll help you tap into the hidden job market and discover some of those opportunities that never get posted. So here's hack number 1. Get focused on your goals. Remember when I said it was a mistake to keep all your options open? You must have a clear idea of the kind of job you're looking for. You can't have a solid job search strategy if you're not clear on where exactly you want to go. I really can't stress this enough. And again, it's okay to have 2 or even 3 different goals that you want to explore, but these goals need to be well-defined and focused. As I said earlier, clear goals help you focus energy on the jobs you really want. It also makes it so much easier for people to help you in your job search. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but the more specific you get with your goals, the easier your entire search becomes. This leads me to a related point. Once you've clarified your career goals in your own mind, you need to let other people know. Don't be shy or modest or embarrassed. If you really want to be a senator from the state of Oregon, you've got to let people know that's your goal. How else will they ever be able to help you get there? At the very least, you need to let people know that you're looking for work. There's no need to be embarrassed about your job search. Everyone has been through this. The simple fact is, people can't help you unless they know what you need. So, the hidden job market is completely driven by connections and relationships. Who you know matters. And I think I've driven that point home. But all those hypothetical relationships can seem intimidating. How are you going to build a robust network from square one? Here's the thing. You don't need to be an industry luminary or the hiring manager's best friend to get a foot in the door. Loose connections are still connections. They matter. Even really loose connections, like being the friend of a friend of a friend who's hiring, can make a huge difference. And the way you grow these connections is through networking. The simple truth is, you've got to be out there, become known, and meet new people. And don't worry, this doesn't mean you're going to big events and awkward mixers. I'll explain more about networking later and how we define it. But one more point here, to get real value from your network, you also have to give value back. Use your own insights to help people with their challenges. Share interesting resources. Volunteer your time, your energy, and your ideas. Do you remember that Beatles lyric, the love you take is equal to the love you make? The same is true for professional networking. The more you put into your network, the more you'll get back. I say this all the time, that this give and take is the way to enter the hidden job market. When I talk to people about networking, I often get this response, something along the lines of, I don't know anyone. But the thing is, everybody knows someone who can help you with your job search. Start with where you are. Talk with the people who know you best, your current and past colleagues, your family and friends, college advisors. Let them know you're looking. Tell them your focus goal and ask them to keep you in mind when they hear about opportunities. It's really that simple. These kinds of connections can do wonders for your search. Here's another tactical suggestion I'd make. Post on Facebook that you're looking for a new job. I know many of you are going to say to yourselves, no way, but think about it. Your friends and family on Facebook are probably your biggest advocates. More than anyone else, they are eager to help you. And you simply never know what kind of connections and opportunities your friends might be able to provide. There we go. Now, to start growing your network, I recommend you do informational interviews with people in your field. And this is probably the single best thing you can do to expedite your job search. Informational interviews give you a unique opportunity to connect with influential people in your industry. And they let you get introductions to other professionals and organizations and learn about work opportunities in the hidden job market. The fact that these are one-on-one meetings makes them much more powerful. You're making a human connection. Every action you take, responding to email on time, showing up early, asking good questions, that all creates the trust needed for a strong professional connection. Most informational interviews don't last more than 30 minutes, and Some of these meetings can be as short as 15 minutes. So you need to plan ahead and set an agenda for every meeting. A successful informational interview accomplishes 3 things. First, your host walks away knowing your background, your accomplishments, and your goals, so they can keep you in mind when opportunities come up. You also walk away with new insights into what's happening in your target field, including potential job openings and contacts at the companies you want to work for. Finally, your host has given you 2 to 3 referrals, other people from their network who you can reach out to. Don't ask for a job in an informational interview. These meetings are about introducing yourself, gathering information, and growing your network. It's a long game, but trust me, informational interviews start paying dividends very quickly. Now, building your network is the best way to find more opportunities through the hidden job market. You can do this by meeting new people, through attending networking events in your field. This is a great way to quickly meet a lot of people and kickstart influential relationships. When I talk about becoming known and trusted in your field, this is what I mean. People will start recognizing you at events. They know you're in the industry, and they know you're serious about your career. And by introducing yourself to just a few new people at every event, your network will grow exponentially. One of the downsides of a traditional networking event is that it's typically more talk, less action. If you really want to make an impression, you've got to demonstrate what you're able to do. That's why volunteering is an important part of the job search. A lot of people ask me whether volunteering is a good strategy for getting your foot in the door of a specific organization. The answer to this question is complicated. Many small organizations will use volunteers because they can't afford to hire staff. So don't assume you're in line for a paying job if you sign up to volunteer. I think it's more productive to think about volunteering as a way to prove yourself in the field and demonstrate what you can do to a variety of potential employers. The key is to find the right volunteer opportunity. Find an organization with a project that will flex your professional muscles and demonstrate your passion. It's also important to know if you'll be okay, if it will be okay to share the results of your work later on, so you can add it to your resume and portfolio. Beyond the experience, volunteering forges strong professional relationships. Hard work does get noticed, trust me on this. And while you might not land a job with the organization you're volunteering for, you will grow your network and you'll gain experience you can use to level up your career somewhere else. So let's do a quick review. These are the actions that will help you avoid job search pain. Number 1, get focused on a specific career goal. Second, once you've got that goal, tell people you're looking. Third, use your existing network. Their help can make a huge difference in your job search. Fourth, do informational interviews. Number 5, attend networking events to meet new people in your industry and discover new opportunities. And finally, volunteer strategically through practice. I know this because I was not a born networker. It's a skill I had to learn and develop throughout my career. And I can tell you it's made all the difference. So we got a limited amount of time here today, and I've got a lot more detailed advice that I put together in our online course, Hack the Hidden Job Market. If you're ready to make this strategy a reality in your own life, I encourage you to check it out. In Hack the Hidden Job Market, I walk you through step-by-step how to build a better job search for yourself. It's a self-paced course. We have 12 video modules in which I teach you how to focus your career goals, explain more about leveraging your network, and cover the important steps to landing a job, including applications and interview skills. You also get worksheets, templates, and even scripts you can customize for your own requests for help and in reaching out for informational interviews. I built this course to give you all the tools you need to hack the hidden job market. Now, Patty, who took the course when we first launched it in 2016, called it a, quote, a research project about yourself. And the exercises that you'll find will give you a roadmap through the tough work of setting goals, identifying opportunities, and making your dream career a reality. This course is usually priced at $279, but we've had such a strong response to this webinar, record number of people signing up. And there's so many people looking for work right now that we're doing a flash sale this week. And we're slashing the price to $229. And as a special gift for everybody who's attending today, I've got an additional discount. You can get the course today for $199. That's the lowest price we've ever offered. Here's the catch. This exclusive price of $199 is only available for the next 24 hours. So if you're ready to take the next step, you can sign up right now. Use the button on the webinar screen, and I'll send you an email with all the details after the webinar. So let's turn to you, and we want to get your questions. What questions do you have from today's webinar, particularly about the hidden job market and what's been frustrating you in your search recently? I look forward to helping you, and just type in your questions. And Becky, I imagine we've got a few lined up.
Yep, we'll switch back to video.
Okay, great.
You can see Mac's shiny face. So our first question comes from Kathy. She is asking for advice. She's looking for a better way to market herself when making a career change specifically. So changing industries or changing job titles.
The first question I'd encourage you to consider, excuse me, is why you want to make that change. And because that's the question that a hiring manager will ask as they look at your cover letter and your other application materials. So you want to come up with a short, persuasive explanation, just 2 or 3 sentences, that you can both put in your cover letter and incorporate in your conversations when you're out at industry events. You also, another tip I would urge you to consider is when you look at your resume and if there's not on an application form, think about the skills that you have that are transferable to that industry, and be sure to highlight them in those materials. Good luck with the switch.
All right. So Jenny is asking, we mentioned one of the common job search mistakes is the apply and wait method.
Yeah.
So she says a lot of online job postings specifically state that they don't want calls or questions about the job because of a high volume of applicants.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too aggressive, but I also don't feel good about not reaching out. What do you recommend?
Well, 2 things. One, if you know the companies you want to work at now, don't wait until you see a posting on the job board, the website of that company to apply. Start looking for contacts inside those companies today and start building relationships now. And the advantage of that is when a position is publicly posted, you'll have people inside the organization that you can turn to for insights about what the hiring manager wants, what their problems are, what their challenges are, and that'll help you put together a really persuasive application. It will also, if you've spent time networking inside that company, you may have connections to the hiring manager, and there might be weak ties, but again, those can make a huge difference. Second, if you if you haven't networked your way inside the company, but you see a position you're applying for, look within your network, and not only in LinkedIn, but perhaps your college alumni database, and see if you know people inside the organization. And while you don't want to call the HR department if they've said no calls, it's perfectly professional and acceptable to reach out to contacts inside the organization and see if they have any insights you can use both when you're preparing your application materials, but also to find out the status of the application and who some of your competitors might be, and again, what the hiring manager is looking for.
Jenny says, that's great advice. Thanks. So thank you, Mac.
Oh, you're welcome, Jenny. Thanks for calling in today.
Yeah. So Andrew asks, or he's kind of give us some context first. So he says, I've been on the job market for nearly 9 months now. I didn't have a huge network in Portland, so I've put a lot of focus on informational interviewing, which is great. I've met with more than 100 people in that time, and rarely, if ever, have people really given me those hidden job opportunities. I'm at a point where I don't know who else to network with. Any ideas on what to do? Well,
first of all, kudos to you for reaching out to so many people. It's a lot of work, and it it takes both effort and a certain amount of gumption to reach out to people that you may not know directly. So I'm glad you've invested that time, Andrew. I would encourage you, if you haven't done so, consider doing sort of a just a check-in about how you're conducting these meetings. And again, I just have the question, so you may be doing all of these things. If you are, forgive me. But I encourage people when they walk into an informational interview to treat it like a business meeting. I'm sure you're doing that. And the people I see who have the most success in these conversations structure the meeting into three parts. The first is they introduce themselves and share their stories and their goals. Second is they have 5 or 6 questions, specific questions for that meeting that are going to give them insights into the industry and what upcoming opportunities there might be. And the third is to ask, and we talked about this in the webinar, for 2 or 3 specific recommendations of other people you might talk to. If you aren't doing some or all of those things, that's okay. This is an art. It takes time to master. But I would encourage you to have that checklist in your mind and not leave the room until you get those 3 things done. And then second, I think about the questions you're asking. I found both personally and in the people that I've seen do this successfully, they will ask someone, not for a job, but say, well, here's my goal. Now, can you tell me, have you heard of any companies that are hiring that might have positions like that? Or another way to ask it is, who's gotten new clients, or who just got a new grant or a new public appropriation, who might be adding staff? Sometimes when you ask the same question in 2 or 3 ways, but it's basically the question is, who might have a job coming up, it'll get people to trigger responses that you might not get the first time you ask the question. But I encourage you, if you're not doing that, Andrew, to make sure that you ask those questions about who might be adding staff or who might be growing. And if you're worried about running out of contacts, make sure you're asking for 2 or 3 recommendations at the end of every conversation, and then go back and look at your networks again. Take another pass through your LinkedIn contacts. Look at that college alumni database. Think about the volunteer or community activities you might be involved in. If there are people there who might have insights into the field you want to work in. It does take time to build a network, but I have to say it's impressive the amount of progress you've made in your short time in Portland. So kudos to you.
I would also add to follow up with those 100 people that you spoke to and check in with them.
That's a great idea, Becky, because to your point, Becky, what he's done here is create a network.
Right.
And
you want to make sure that you keep those folks in your professional network and keep them close. Yeah,
and have a specific communication for them. It's like, hey, just checking back. Want you to know I'm making progress. And if you've got a specific need, I'm guessing, Andrew, you know a lot more about your goals and the places you want to work at today than you did when you started out. Share that with the people that you met with in your first month or so and see if they have insights that might be helpful.
Great. Let's see here. So Margareta has asked, can you provide an example of a clear goal? So mentioning getting that focused job search goal, what would be a good example of a goal?
I think it's inside you. I find when I meet with job seekers, Margareta, that I'll ask them what their goal is. And they say, well, and I say this respectfully, sometimes people say, well, I'm not sure. Well, no, really, just tell me. Doors closed. I won't tell anyone. What are the 2 or 3 things in your mind that you would like to do? Just say them out loud. And I would encourage you to do the same. There are certainly more formal goal-setting processes you can go through. You can work with a career coach. If you're a graduate of a college or university, you can often work with your career services office as an alum, and they often will have workshops or other tools you can use to help you with goal setting. I'm also a big fan of state employment offices, whether you're in Oregon or elsewhere. Each of them will offer workshops and other classes that can help with resume writing, but goal setting as well. So whether you do it with a friend or you just and talk through what those goals might be, say them out loud, put them on paper, or go through a formal process. Those are ways I've seen people do it successfully.
And just a follow up from Marissa. So she was asking about the focus goals as well. She's asking, is it like a job title, a specific location, or a specific set of skills that you want to use? Maybe we could get into some of the specifics of how you speak the goal out loud. Does it include a job title, or is it more general?
I think it's good to have a job. It starts with a job title, and it's usually a position that you've seen someone do or that you aspire to. Mm-hmm. Another way to approach it, though, is by going through a self-assessment process, looking at your strengths, using tools like strength finders. Again, you can work with career coaches or career services offices to get clear about your strengths and the things that excite you and give you energy. And then if you go in that direction, Marissa, you can, in your informational interviews and conversations with others, say, well, these are the things I'm good at. I'm trying to identify positions or that would allow me to use these skills. And usually after a few conversations, you will zero in on those kinds of specific jobs. And once then you should sit down with people who do that work, who have those jobs, and ask them about typical days, or the qualifications necessary, how they got those positions, what the jobs pay. And that'll give you a clear idea of if indeed that is what you want to do. But those are two ways to approach it. One is with a specific position title and going out and talking to people who have those gigs, or the other is to look at your own strengths and interests, the things that give you energy and excitement, and then identify positions that would allow you to put those talents to work.
I think a lot of folks are interested in this question, and we're working on an email in a couple days that will send you guys some more focused tips. So hopefully that will help.
Yeah.
Kim is asking, do you have tips for networking in a new industry?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kim. I think there are a couple of ways you can approach it. One is to identify the professional groups or other community events where people in that industry gather. And you can talk to people, your contacts in the industry, and say what are the organizations where the leaders in your field meet. You can also look on Meetup. They're for groups that are in that world. And then I'm a big fan of shopping around. Usually you'll end up with a list of 4 or 5 organizations. Go to 1 or 2 events of those groups and see if that's a community that offers you the kinds of insights and connections and experiences that would be valuable to you in your job search. So both look online, ask leaders in the field for tips, and in addition to attending events, once you find an organization that you think meets your professional needs, consider volunteering for a short-term project. Most organizations will have some kind of happy hour lunch program or even a big annual conference, and they're looking for volunteers to help. And that can be a great way to connect with both the leaders of the organization, or usually leaders in the field, and show them what you can do. And particularly, I'm a big fan of projects, something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You want to sign up to be a board member with a 3 or 4 year term before you're really committed to an organization.
So several folks have been asking about ageism. So specifically asking for tips for dealing with ageism as an older job seeker. And if you've had significant breaks between gigs, how do you explain that?
Yeah, it's a big question. And I'm a baby boomer myself, so I have special sympathy for this. But I think there are a couple things. One, if you're an older job seeker, you've got to acknowledge that there are myths out there about older workers rather, and be prepared to address them, even though they'll never be raised or discussed publicly. We all know that ageism in hiring is against the law. It's illegal. But pursuing a lawsuit, it can be difficult and expensive. And so you need instead to look for other strategies. Again, one way to start is to think about those myths about older workers, that we're looking for a place to coast, that we haven't kept up with technology, that we're going to be difficult. We're not going to be happy working for younger managers. The list is could go on, but there are probably 8 or 10 key items like that will be on the minds of hiring managers who are reviewing application materials or running interview panels. They're not going to ask you that directly because it's against the law, but you can think about how you present yourself, both in your materials and in interviews, and address those concerns head on. So the one about technology, for example, you want to have a strong online presence to show that you're comfortable with social media. If you've worked with younger managers, and by this stage in our careers, most of us have for a long time, and make a point of documenting and showing that, or working it into stories or anecdotes or answers to interview questions. If you are a lifelong learner, and chances are if you're still in the workplace, you are, be prepared to, again, demonstrate that in your application materials. There's some small tactical things too. You want to make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and complete. You probably should drop the AOL.com and Yahoo.com emails. Things that might say I'm older, I'm 50 or 60 plus.
Great. Jonathan asks, how do you present yourself when you're, quote, overqualified? I guess this is similar to the ASIM question. What if the reason you're applying is that you want something with less responsibility, less stress? Can you just say that? Or should you sort of position it in a different way? Yeah.
You should do exactly that, Jonathan. And because this is similar to the question we got at the start about making a sector switch. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why you want to do this. The hiring manager who's looking at your material or interviewing you for the position is wondering this. So you need to have an explanation, and it needs to be short and persuasive, and it needs to be in your cover letter in the first stage of the process, and you need to be prepared to talk about it. Because smart hiring managers recognize that people go through different stages in life, and they're looking at goals and ambitions will change and shift. And it can be a good deal to get an experienced, well-qualified person for a position who's looking for exactly what you described, something less stressful and less demanding.
Great. All right, let's do some rapid fire.
Okay. How are we doing on time, Becky?
We've got about 7 minutes left for Q&A. So Debbie's asked you to talk a little bit more about LinkedIn.
Sure.
She has applied for some jobs through LinkedIn, and she's asking if it's good to try to connect on LinkedIn with the hiring manager. If you can find, if they're listed on that LinkedIn job description.
That's a personal preference. I think I would personally, if I knew the name of the hiring manager, I would follow up with a LinkedIn invitation. I wouldn't use the default invitation. I think the phrase is, I'd like to add you as a connection to my network. Instead, personalize it, write directly to the hiring manager and say, hi, Joan, I just sent in my application for the position of Program Analyst 2. Very excited about the opportunity. Look forward to talking, hearing from you. In the meantime, let's connect on LinkedIn, and leave it at that. But I think if you send out a personalized invitation, you will stand head and shoulders above so many other people. I'm grateful to the many people who connect with me on LinkedIn. I get about 5 to 10 invitations a day. I would say maybe 1 out of 10, I get a personal note, and I'm always, those people I remember more than the other 9. So yes, I would do that.
Tony asks, what are your thoughts on working with a headhunter or recruiter?
I think you want to know who the recruiters and headhunters are in your field. and make sure you build a relationship with them over the course of your career. You need to know how they work. They get paid by the employer, not by you. They don't charge fees. They may be working with several candidates at the same time. So recognize that recruiters get paid by the employer for bringing forward a strong group of candidates. And if you're in a group of 3, congratulations, but that doesn't mean the recruiter is an advocate just for you. They are also an advocate for the other people in that group. And so, recruiter, it's always interesting to work with one. And I know people have gotten positions through headhunters, but you don't want to, as with job boards, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Yes, have relationships with recruiters, but also do other things in your search as well.
Darcy's asked, how do you proceed to network if you're an introvert? So what's like the first step to really get into it?
Volunteering for a position at an event in a role that you're comfortable with, perhaps at the check-in table, or maybe if you're a photographer, taking pictures, or if you're a writer, writing up the newsletter article about the event. These are all things that allow you to participate and build connections and relationships with the leadership and organizers of the event without having to shake a dozen or 2 dozen hands. I would look for opportunities like that. And because there are lots of ways introverts can connect at events. And in fact, Becky, I don't know if you remember this, but we did a podcast interview with Trina Isaacson on this, The Introvert's Guide to Networking. It's back in that first year, but you can find it on our website. And Trina had lots of other good tips like that as well.
Yeah, good catch. Emily asks, how do you advertise you're looking when you're currently employed? So maybe you don't want your current boss to find out you're looking.
Oh, that's an interesting one, because that's actually the subject of a podcast interview we're doing next month.
Yeah.
Because you may know this, LinkedIn now has a box you can check that says, I'm open. And it's something that's visible only to recruiters. And so recruiters can search by that. This isn't the magic wand that's going to get you a position, but it's certainly something you can consider doing. And as I was talking to the expert that we're going to be interviewing on the podcast next month about this topic, the title of the show is how to tell recruiters you're open without your boss finding out. She had 6 or 7 other tips, and I'll just run through them very quickly. We'll talk more on the show. But it was, make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. Another tip was identify recruiters in your industry and build relationships with them, engage with them. Third was, go to industry events. Talk to people discreetly. Let people know that you're interested. So there's lots of things like that you can do. I think the key is, job hunting is an ongoing process. So you should always be doing a little networking and it will pay dividends down the road.
All right, maybe a couple more here. So Nancy's asked, many professional societies offer certification programs, sometimes expensive ones, to provide additional credentials in a particular field or skill set. How much do you find that these help differentiate as an applicant, or are they worth the time and money investment to get that certification?
I think it depends on whether or not it matters to the hiring managers you hope will hire you. So a certification might make a huge difference for a particular kind of position. I'm thinking especially in the healthcare field, in science, in education. I think we all know that to move up in terms of pay as a teacher, you've eventually got to get a master's degree, and often, depending on the occupation, you have to continue to earn these learning credits. So I think it comes back to the field you want to work in and what matters to the people who are doing the hiring. If you're not clear what matters to the hiring managers, ask them or ask people in that world. And ask them what kind of educational credentials you need to be successful.
All right. And Andy asks, how can we build a strong, persuasive cover letter?
It's a great question, Andy. This is, it's an important document. It matters very much. I think it's really about two things. One is understanding what the employer's problems are, and you can learn that by looking at their website, looking at the job posting, talking to people inside the organization. But it begins with the employer's needs, because hiring managers are looking for people who can solve problems. And the second thing, in addition, is that you need to talk about your accomplishments, what you did for others, the problems you solved for others. So look at that job posting, write a unique letter. It needs to acknowledge what some of the challenges of that position might be. And then you need to give examples, just one or two, of how you've solved similar problems and addressed similar challenges for other employers. The more specific you can be about those accomplishments, got a fact, specific numbers or results, the more persuasive the letter will be.
All right, great. There are a few more questions, but unfortunately we're running out of time. I feel like a lot of these are answered in the course, but we will also email responses to all the folks that we didn't get to their questions.
All right.
So I think it's time to wrap up, Mac.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. And again, I know some of you may have come in later. Just a reminder, we will provide a recording of the webinar in about an hour's time, and you will get an email from us tomorrow with a link to the webinar. And as Becky said, so many of the questions I expect you have are answered in the course. One of the things I'm really excited about this course, that excites me about the course rather, is it takes everything I've learned about job hunting and puts it into one 12-part class that lays it all out. And I love talking to job seekers. Typically, we'll meet with a group once a month, and we do events 6 times a year. And I get a lot of the same questions again and again, which is normal. And we've tried, when we wrote this course and created it, we did it with all those questions in mind. And so this is a way for us to serve as many people as possible. If you have more questions, however, email me. My address is easy to remember, mac@maxlist.org. I also encourage you to reach out and connect with me on Twitter and on LinkedIn. Keep an eye out for that recording of the course. It's just 24 hours for that special price that I mentioned, $199 for Hack the Hidden Job Market. It'll never be lower. I really hope you'll take the next step and join me. And thank you again for coming today.